Welcome to Shadowed Tales Archive. Tonight's story is titled, The Dust That Draws You. Let the shadows speak.
Part 1. The First Sketch. My name is Lauren Black, and if you're hearing this, it means I finally got through to someone. I don't know where my sister is, or no, that's not quite right. I know exactly where she is. She's in the sketch on the east side of the old McKinley campus wall. The one nobody talks about anymore. The one they painted over twice and somehow it still bleeds through when it rains. I know what that sounds like. Crazy, right? But you didn't know Harper. You didn't see her change. And you never met the man with the silver chalk. We used to be inseparable. Typical twins, you've heard it all before. Same long auburn hair, same stupid inside jokes, same taste in music, guys, and late-night peanut butter rituals. But Harper was always warmer. She drew people in. I just drew things. Literally. I was the art nerd, buried in charcoal and sketchbooks, while she floated through college like a glowing balloon tethered to my wrist. We shared everything. Until the man with the chalk. It started on a Tuesday. Harper came home late, her boots dusted in white powder like she'd been walking through ash. I asked her about it and she just smiled. Street artist, she said. Doing sketches in the quad. You'd love it. I didn't think much of it. Harper always had a thing for weird creatives. But something about the way she said you'd love it felt practiced. Like she was repeating someone else's line. The next morning there was chalk on the floor of our dorm. Swirls and lines. Precise yet impossibly fluid. Almost glowing in the early light. She said she was just doodling. But the lines were too exact. Too deliberate. She never used chalk before. I first saw him the following week. He was kneeling near the abandoned greenhouse, sketching a shape into the concrete. A massive, swirling eye composed entirely of looping runes I didn't recognize. His hand moved fast, but the lines came out clean and perfect. He wore a gray coat with torn cuffs. His hair was long but not messy, just wrong, like it didn't belong to him. His name, according to Harper, was Silas, but nobody else on campus knew that name. No one even remembered seeing him. "Isn't he brilliant?" she whispered one night, staring out the window. Her voice sounded different, like she was high but slower, dreamier, reverent. "He showed me things, Lauren," she said, eyes wide. "Shapes behind shapes, lines behind skin." I thought she was being dramatic. She always was. But then she started disappearing for hours, sometimes full nights. And each time she came back, she was quieter, smiling that same smile, tracing invisible symbols onto the bedsheets. I tried talking to her, shouting even, begging, but she always replied the same way. "He sketches what matters." That was his phrase, his mantra. I heard it so many times it started crawling under my skin. Things got worse. One night I followed her. She walked across campus barefoot, trailing white powder behind her. Her clothes hung strange on her frame, like she'd lost weight or gained something else. She stopped at the campus fountain. Silas was already there, hunched over the stone, drawing. The sound of chalk scraping against the fountain's side was sickening, wet, too deep. I hid behind a tree. Then I saw her step into the fountain. She just stepped in. Shoes and all. Water didn't ripple, like it wasn't water anymore. He looked at her and nodded. She smiled, and then she vanished. I ran home crying. I stayed up until sunrise, praying she'd return. She did, soaking wet, eyes shining. White chalk dust still smeared along her cheekbones. She didn't say a word, just left a piece of silver chalk on my pillow. I started seeing things after that. Faces in the walls, symbols in the cracks, The chalk drawings that appeared on campus, grim, surreal, too detailed, started to look familiar. Some showed versions of Harper, others of me. In one, I was hanging from strings, bleeding white instead of red. In another, I was reaching for a door carved into the sky. The lines of each sketch began to move when I wasn't looking. The final straw came a week later. Harper called me into the common room, her voice too cheerful. "Come see what we made," she said. On the wall behind her was a full mural, freshly drawn, impossibly massive, pulsing with lines that bent the light. It showed a circle of girls kneeling, eyes blank, all connected by a web of chalk veins that pulsed like roots. And in the center, Silas, or something shaped like him. Too tall, no face, just light where the eyes should be. I backed away. "You don't see it now," Harper said, stepping toward me, eyes glowing. "But he'll show you. He always shows what matters." That night, I packed a bag and ran. I never went back to the dorm. And the next morning, the mural was gone, painted over, no trace. But the wall kept bleeding white when it rained. It's been 6 months. They never found Harper. They said she probably ran away. But I know better. She's in the wall, in the dust, and I think he's sketching me next. Part 2. Patterns in the Dust. The file landed in my inbox at 2:03 a.m., no subject line. Just a Dropbox link and the words, "You said you were looking for patterns. Start here." The sender's address was scrambled. A burner. I shouldn't have clicked it, but curiosity is stronger than good judgment, especially for someone like me. My name's Ethan Marsh. I'm a freelance journalist, or was, depending on whether you count the last few months of unpaid writing as a career. For a while, I wrote stories that nobody else wanted to touch. Underground cults, mass disappearances, esoteric deaths swept under bureaucratic rugs. But this one wasn't like the others. The folder was titled simply, Silas. Inside were 47 photos, mostly street art. Murals, sidewalk scrawls, sketches on overpasses and alley walls. All in what looked like chalk, only slightly metallic, unnervingly precise. Each photo had a date, a place. Seattle 2004, Austin 2007, Oslo 2011, Chicago 2013, and most recently, McKinley College 2023. Some of the art was clearly graffiti, but others, they felt ancient. One photo stopped me cold. It was a chalk mural of a young woman, red-haired, freckled, eyes open wide with awe or terror. It was hard to say. She was kneeling, palms out, as if offering something invisible. Behind her, a shape like a man, towering, faceless, arms outstretched. Underneath were the words, smudged and half erased. "He sketches what matters." I'd seen that phrase before. What? In a Reddit post buried in an urban legend thread from years ago. The user said her roommate in art school started talking about a chalk prophet who drew people into existence before they disappeared. She wrote, she said she could feel him sketching her from the inside. The post was deleted within the hour. I called a friend in data recovery. She pulled an archive of missing persons reports near the locations in the photos. It didn't take long to find them. Each city, each mural, each year coincided with disappearances. Not mass events, not dramatic scenes. Just single people. A girl here, a man there. Seemingly random. But each lived within walking distance of the art. In every case, they vanished without a trace. And in every case, there were reports of strange drawings on walls, sidewalks, or buildings near their last known location. It wasn't enough for a story. Not yet. But I was close. I booked a trip to McKinley, the site of the most recent photos in the file. The college town was quiet. too quiet. When I asked about Harper Black, a 21-year-old art student gone missing 6 months prior, most people gave me tight-lipped shrugs. "She's probably just traveling," one professor said, eyes darting away. "Kids do that." A girl at the coffee shop whispered, "Don't go near the east wall." She didn't explain why. I did, of course. The wall was freshly painted over, smooth as marble. But when I touched it, chalk came off on my fingers. White, gritty, cold. That night, I stayed at a motel just off the highway. Around 2 a.m., I heard scratching. At first, I thought it was rats. Old buildings like this always have vermin. But when I turned on the light, there was a line of chalk across the floor. Not just a line, a shape, a single eye. The next morning, the motel manager swore no one could have entered my room. I didn't sleep again that night. In the local library, I pulled microfilm archives from old city papers. Silas wasn't a name I expected to find, but it popped up in the oddest places. Police reports from the 1960s described a man drawing religious symbols in chalk outside churches. In 1983, there was a string of child disappearances in West Virginia. A local preacher blamed a traveler with silver dust on his hands. The town records listed the name Silas Gant. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a single man, or at least not anymore. One theory came to me late at night, scrawled in my notebook like a fever dream. Silas isn't a person. He's a fragment, a self-replicating entity that travels through image, through chalk, through the hands of others. He uses artists, infects them like a parasite, and when they're fully hollowed out, he sketches them into the places no one looks. Into walls, into stone, into memory. It was insane, but the pattern fit. I went back to the east wall. This time I brought a bottle of water. I poured it slowly down the bricks, and there she was, Harper Black, half erased like a dream dissolving, but it was her, kneeling, smiling, eyes open. Next to her, a faint sketch of someone else, hair shorter, body thinner. Me. The chalk lines were still forming, even as I watched. Back in my motel room, I packed fast. This wasn't a story anymore. It was a message, a warning, or worse, a targeting system. When I got home to Boston 2 days later, there was chalk dust in my mailbox. I hadn't told anyone I was leaving. I hadn't told anyone where I stayed. The dust formed a spiral on the bottom of the envelope, and one line, scrawled in silver on black paper. "You're next, Ethan." He sketches what matters. Part 3. A voice in the static. I shouldn't be alive. That's the only thought I have when I wake up most mornings. My name is Rosalind Gale, and once, 15 years ago, I called myself a seeker of the dusted circle. That's what we used to be, the ones who followed him, the ones who listened when the chalk started whispering. I know how that sounds, but if you're hearing this, it means Ethan's file got through. Maybe Lauren's too. Maybe you're starting to believe what we never stopped fearing. Silas is still drawing, and the dust never really settled. I was 17 the first time I saw him. He wasn't drawing on a wall or sidewalk. He was drawing in air. It was behind our town's abandoned television station, a place everyone avoided after the fire. The screens had melted into warped, glassy smiles. Static would play even without electricity. I remember the way he stood, bent forward, his hand not touching the brick, but the lines still forming. Chalk floated behind him like smoke. No face, no eyes, just silver lenses glowing in the dark. When he turned, we should have run, but we didn't. We bowed. He never spoke directly, but we heard him. That was the gift, he said. A select few could hear the static beneath silence. For me, it began as faint scribbling sounds, then whispers, then full phrases scratched into my skull like graphite etching through bone. "You are a sketch in progress, Roslyn. You belong to the frame. Erase the self. Make space for the shape." We called ourselves the Dusted Circle. Each of us was chosen. He found us through chalk, left trails in alleys, symbols behind classroom doors, marks in the dirt under our beds. And when we gathered, we created. We filled basements, warehouses, and abandoned churches with murals that pulsed and moved when no one watched. Our leader was a woman named Delphine, older than all of us, maybe in her 60s. We never questioned how she found him, only that she did. She said she'd been marked in 1971, spared in 1973, and sketching ever since. We believed everything she said. Initiation was simple. We each drew our worst memory in chalk, life-size, while Silas watched. Then we erased it, with our bare hands, until there was only dust. And then he'd draw us back, but not quite the same. For me, it was a hospital bed. My father, tubes down his throat, eyes blank, just weeks before he died. I drew every wrinkle, every machine, and then I smeared it into nothing. He smiled. That was the only time I saw his mouth. A clean, perfect line that wasn't part of his face. It just hovered there, too wide. They say trauma breaks people. Silas doesn't just break you, he redraws you. The rituals grew stranger. We were asked to draw people who hadn't died, but who we wanted to vanish. "Sketch their last day," Delphine would whisper, passing out fresh sticks of shimmering chalk. I didn't want to. None of us truly did, but it was part of the learning. One boy, Carter, refused. He tore his sketch apart mid-ritual. 2 nights later, he vanished. We found a chalk outline of him inside the boiler room. Arms spread, head tilted, eyes gone. Delphine said it was proof. He only consumes those who resist their shape. "Become the line," she said. Not the hand, not the thought, just the line. Some of us believed her. Some of us didn't. But it was too late. I don't remember the day I left. Only the night I woke up 3 states away in a cheap motel, blood under my fingernails, chalk dust in my lungs. My reflection looked like a stranger. There was a sketch in the room's mirror. Me, smiling. But it wasn't my smile. I tried to forget. Burned every journal. Moved to the coast. Took a name no one could trace. But last week I saw him again. In a dream? No. On a billboard off the freeway. In the static between radio channels. Behind my closed eyes when I blinked too long. Silas never stopped sketching. He just changed mediums. They said he began as a man. An artist who died in a fire trying to finish a mural no one ever saw. They say the fire didn't kill him. It transferred him. To the pigment. To the dust. Now he's not a man. He's a shape. A syntax the universe hides in shadows. A sketch waiting to finish itself through us. So if you've seen the signs, the spiral in silver, the phrase, "He sketches what matters," the whisper behind your own thoughts, you need to leave. Leave your home. Leave your name. Burn everything you've drawn. Don't look at your reflection for too long. Don't listen when the chalk begins to scratch, because that's not the sound of writing. That's the sound of your outline being filled in. Part 4. The House on Birch Hollow. It was supposed to be a fresh start. That's what I kept telling myself as I drove the moving van down the 2-lane road lined with fog and pine trees. My son, Micah, sat in the passenger seat, clutching his sketch pad like it was a shield. He hadn't said a word in nearly 30 minutes. He just stared out the window at the trees, whispering under his breath. I should have paid attention to what he was saying. The house on Birch Hollow was too cheap for its size. That should have been my first clue. A 2-story colonial with creaky shutters and ivy up the chimney. The real estate agent said the last tenants left in a hurry. No other details. I didn't ask. All I knew was I needed out of Chicago. After Micah's father passed, the city became a pressure cooker of memory and regret. I needed quiet. I needed clean air. I needed to forget. Micah didn't complain. He rarely did. Ever since the funeral, he'd stopped drawing people. He used to sketch everything: classmates, neighbors, superheroes, even me. But now it was all shapes. Spirals, circles, strange trees with too many branches. Sometimes he'd hum while he drew, the same tune over and over. When I asked him what the song was, he just said, "It helps me stay outside the picture." I thought he was being poetic, but now I wonder if it was a warning. The first time I noticed the chalk, it was under the welcome mat. A thin dusting of white powder, glinting faintly in the morning light. I assumed it was plaster, or maybe something tracked in by the movers. But that night, when I stepped outside to smoke, there was a line running across the front porch. A line of silver chalk, drawn in a perfect circle. When I rubbed it with my foot, it didn't smear. It vanished, like it had sunk into the wood. Micah didn't want to sleep in his room the first night. "Someone's already in there," he said, matter of fact, like he was telling me it would rain tomorrow. "There's no one, baby," I said. "We're the only ones here." He shook his head. He left himself behind. I set up a baby monitor in his room that night just for peace of mind. At 3:17 a.m., it turned on by itself. There was static at first, then scratching, then a voice. Not words, not language, just the sound of drawing. Slow, deliberate, as if someone was tracing something over and over again. The next morning, I found Micah in the kitchen drawing a perfect rectangle. Inside it was a figure, stick thin, head too round, fingers too long. "Who's that, Micah?" I asked. He didn't look up. "Not who. What?" "He's a sketch left unfinished. He said if I keep drawing him, he won't have to come." I ripped the page out of his pad and threw it away. But I shouldn't have. That night I had a dream. In it, I was standing in Micah's room watching the walls draw themselves. Not painted, drawn. Line by line, the walls sketched themselves upward, like time-lapse footage playing in reverse. And then I heard the voice. Close. What? Like chalk dragged across a fogged window. "She's almost erased. Room for one more." I woke up screaming. Micah was already awake, sitting on the edge of my bed, clutching the drawing I'd thrown away. Only now the figure had eyes. 2 empty ovals filled with dust. "Why are you drawing this again?" I asked, my voice shaking. He didn't answer. He just pointed toward the hallway. "I didn't redraw him, Mommy." He finished it. I called a contractor the next day to check the attic. He told me the insulation was fine, but there were drawings under the floorboards, etched in chalk, dozens of them. Each one showed a different person, all curled into fetal positions, their mouths open in silence. On the back wall, someone had scrawled a phrase, "Do not erase." I burned everything I could, the sketch pad, the monitor, even the floorboards from the attic. I lit it all in the backyard fire pit. Micah watched without emotion. When the flames were almost out, he turned to me and whispered, "It doesn't work. You can't burn what hasn't been finished. You can't erase someone who hasn't been drawn completely." The next morning, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a stick of chalk, silver and smooth like stone, and a card. In fine, perfect print. "We remember the unfinished. He sketches what matters." I packed our bags. I tried to leave, but the tires spun endlessly in the driveway like we were anchored to the ground. And that's when I saw the shape on the road. A sketch, massive and exact, drawn across the asphalt. A perfect spiral. And at the center, a single word etched over and over. Stay. That night, Micah spoke in his sleep, not mumbled, chanted, as if something else was using his voice. She has not been framed. There is still room on the wall. We wait for the final line. I don't know what he's drawing now. He doesn't let me see the pages. But every morning there's chalk dust on the windows. And sometimes, just sometimes, when I pass a mirror, my reflection lags behind, like it's still being outlined. Part 5. The Gallery Below. I work night shift at the Halstead Museum of Modern Art. Not glamorous, I know. Everyone thinks art museums close at 5 p.m., but someone has to stay late to handle maintenance, climate checks, system resets, and rotating installations. That someone is usually me. My name's Dorian Wells, and for the past 6 years I've been walking marble hallways under dim motion sensors, surrounded by priceless paintings and silent sculptures that somehow feel like they're watching back. But none of that ever scared me. Not until the sketches started appearing. It began 3 weeks ago. Just after 2 a.m., I was walking past Gallery 4B, an empty wing under renovation, when I noticed something strange on the wall near the freight elevator. A drawing. It was crude. Just black and white chalk lines in a swirling pattern. Looked like it had been done quickly, maybe by some bored intern with a stick of soft pastel. Except there were no interns, and we don't use chalk here. Ever. I snapped a photo on my phone and reported it to my supervisor. He waved it off, blamed it on graffiti seeping through the old plaster. But the next night, the drawing had changed. Same wall, same size, but the lines were deeper now, more symmetrical, like someone had retraced it. And at the center was a new symbol, an eye, not like any I'd seen before. No iris. Just a single vertical slit surrounded by a halo of repeating letters I couldn't read. When I touched the lines, the wall felt warm. Then the hallway lights blew out. Every bulb. All at once. Silence collapsed around me like a blanket soaked in water. And then I heard it. The scratching. The unmistakable sound of chalk on stone. Not a casual doodle. A deliberate outline. Somewhere behind the wall. I left early that night. Told them it was a breaker search. Didn't tell them I saw the chalk lines pulsing like veins. Didn't tell them the wall whispered when I walked away. Over the next few nights, the drawing expanded. No matter how many times I reported it, no one took me seriously. No one else saw it. During the day, it was just a blank wall. But at night, it grew. More lines, more shapes, then figures. They were human, mostly. Except their mouths were stitched with thick chalk strokes. Their arms stretched beyond normal proportions. Their hands always pointing at me. One figure appeared over and over, a tall man in a long coat. His face was obscured by smudges, but two bright lenses glowed above the darkened features. Sometimes if I stood still, I could hear him breathing from inside the wall. Last Tuesday, I noticed a new corridor on the floor plan. Sub-basement listed as storage B2. Except we don't have a B2. Only one basement. Or so I thought. I used my access card. The elevator blinked, then slowly descended. Longer than usual. The lights flickered. And when the doors opened, I found the gallery. It wasn't on any map. The walls were old, curved, brick instead of marble. And lining those walls were sketches. Hundreds of them. Some small, some massive. All in silver chalk. All incomplete. Some looked like people in mid-motion, arms fading at the edges. Others were cities unraveling in chalk dust. But the ones that terrified me the most were the ones that looked like memories. One sketch showed a child's birthday party. Balloons, streamers, a cake. And at the center, a mother holding her child. The faces were blank. but I knew that room. It was my 9th birthday. Another showed my brother's old bedroom. Another was the ICU room where my father passed away. None of these images had labels, no titles, but they were all unfinished. Missing lines, fragmented edges, some scribbled out and redrawn again and again. In the far corner of the hidden gallery stood a single easel, facing the wall, and behind it, Silas, not a man, a figure of smudges and angles, moving like he was made of dust and intention. He didn't look at me, he just drew. His fingers left no mark on the wall, but I could feel it. Something was being added, something with my name on it. I turned and ran. The elevator was gone, the stairwell was sealed, and the lights began to dim one by one behind me. As I sprinted down the hallway, I heard his voice, not from behind me, but inside me. They forget what was sketched, but we remember. Unfinished lives are invitations. I blacked out somewhere between the 3rd and 4th gallery. Woke up in the supply closet at ground level, covered in chalk dust. My palms were gray. My eyes burned. My phone's gallery was filled with photos I didn't take. Drawings of me, sleeping, bleeding, smiling. The sub-basement's gone now. Security says there's no record of Gallery B2. No elevator logs, no structural evidence. But last night, someone left a note in my locker, written in silver on black construction paper. We do not hide. We are erased. He sketches what matters, and you are almost done. Part 6, Frame Buffer. You ever seen a video that you're sure you didn't download? Not like some random autoplay junk on your feed. I mean a file that shouldn't exist. One that shows you things you've never filmed, from angles that don't make sense, in places you've never been, but you know it's you. That's what happened to me, and it's how I found him. Or more accurately, how he found me. My handle online is Glyphcatcher. I moderate a digital forum called Dead Pixels, a corner of the deep web where we archive anomalous media. Videos with no metadata, images that corrupt when scanned, audio files that rewrite ID3 tags mid-playback. We don't post creepypasta. We don't chase clout. We document real stuff, or what passes for real in the uncanny folds of the internet. On April 12th, one of our regulars, user Neon Slit, dropped a link to a file called frame_000.mp4. No description, just the caption. He got in. I clicked it. Of course I did. The video was 12 minutes and 43 seconds long. Silent. It opened on a dim hallway, walls pulsing faintly like lungs. Dust floated in slow spirals. As the camera moved forward, smoothly, no steps, no hand jitter, I felt a pressure in my temples, like something new I was watching. At 2:37 in, the camera passed a mirror, and I was in it, staring back. Same hoodie I was wearing, same hair, same chipped tooth, but I wasn't the one filming. I ripped off my headphones, slid the progress bar back, paused, frame by frame. Still me, same expression, same twitch in the left eye, but the figure holding the camera, it wasn't visible. I tried deleting the file. It wouldn't go. Tried wiping the entire folder. It duplicated itself, in System 32, in downloads, even in my Steam screenshots. Every copy slightly different. Some shorter, some longer. One version ended with a sketch, in chalk, on what looked like my bedroom wall. The camera zoomed into it until the screen turned white, and then he sketches what matters. A whisper. No audio track. No waveform. But my speakers vibrated. That night I lost time. I remember closing my laptop. Next thing I know, it's 4:46 a.m. I'm sitting at my desk, My fingertips are gray, and someone's drawn a perfect circle on my second monitor in chalk. Real chalk. On glass. The forum exploded. Half our user base claimed they got the video through torrent sync, even though it was never uploaded to any public tracker. Others said they found it already saved to old flash drives. Some said it played on their TV even when unplugged. Then the missing report started. Neon Slit vanished. So did Stray Golem, W0RM Mouth, and Amber Noise. One mod, Deep Raster, posted, "Unsubbing. I don't like what it's doing to my screen, or my sleep." His last message was, "Why is my reflection still moving?" I did a WHOIS lookup on the domain the file came from. It rerouted through 7 dummy IPs, all of them tied to museums, college servers, and oddly, a decommissioned public access TV station in Nebraska. That's when I remembered something. Back in 2019, someone had uploaded scans of chalk art found on an old transmission tower. No one could identify the symbols. They looked decorative, but one of them matched the spiral that had formed on my mirror 2 nights ago. I checked the scan again. Embedded in the static was a name, Silas. I dug deeper. Found archived posts from 2004 on a forgotten ARG blog. They mentioned a digital prophet named Silas who spoke through pixels, corrupted lenses, and chalk lines. A quote stood out. "He was analog once. Now he's layered. We're all frame buffers now. Your screen is his window." Since then, I've stopped recording anything, uninstalled my webcam drivers, taped over every lens, but it's not enough. Last week, I started finding rendered images of myself on my PC, created in apps I don't even own. My posture always wrong, my eyes always blank, and in every one behind me, a tall figure in a long coat, no face, just 2 glowing lenses where eyes should be. Last night the power went out, but my laptop turned on, by itself. The file played again. This time it ended with me, lying in bed, chalk dust falling from the ceiling, and a final line, "You are the last stroke." I'm writing this on a burner laptop. No camera, no storage. I'll destroy it after I send this. But I had to warn you, if you see the phrase, "He sketches what matters," turn off your screen, walk away. Don't finish the frame, because if you do, he finishes you. Part 7. The Incomplete God. Translated from the Vexley manuscripts, circa 1591. Recovered from the archives beneath St. Rillian Abbey, northern France. Original language, Latin and Old English. Annotation and commentary by Dr. Emmeline Brooke, Department of Arcane Theologies, Cambridge, retired. Entry I, The Marks Beneath the Church. March 3, 1589. I have discovered a chamber beneath the sacristy floor. Not on any map nor mentioned in the abbey's blueprints. The air inside feels wrong. It hovers, thick with dust that does not move with wind nor respond to breath. There are markings etched into the stones. Not letters, not runes, not even art. More like intention scratched into form, and all of them unfinished. The largest of them, a spiral flanked by mirrored figures, leads toward the altar stone, where the dust is gathered in a pattern I cannot explain. Entry 4, The Name in Dust. March 18, 1589. I dared to sketch the symbols today, copying them line by line into my journal. As I drew, the tip of my charcoal broke. When I examined it, I found it had hollowed from the inside. The pattern I copied seems to change subtly when I look away, as if it finishes itself in shadow. At the bottom of the spiral, a name has begun to appear, written in no ink, just gray powder. Silas. Entry 9, Visitations. April 4, 1589. He appears in reflections now, first in the polished silver of the chalice, then the basin, then my pupil's eyes. He never speaks, but I feel him trace me, a weight behind the mirror outlining bone and breath. The others do not see him, but they grow silent when I mention the name. My abbot has warned me to cease these writings, but how can I? He is nearly complete. I can feel the last line drawing toward me. Entry 13, the sketch that watches. May 1st, 1589. I dared to paint what I saw beneath the abbey, not with brush, but with chalk, sacred dust from the old reliquary. The image was imperfect, a figure not yet formed, a face split by a vertical light, arms too long, coated in veils of unfinished line work. When I turned away from the painting, I felt breath on my shoulder, a whisper in my ear. Finish me. I dropped the chalk and fled, but the image remained. Now it appears on my walls, drawn again in dust each night. Entry 17, Confession. May 28, 1589. I fear I am becoming a thing half erased. I forget names, locations. I could not recall the face of my mother today. I turned the pages of my own journal and could not remember writing them. It is not madness. It is removal. He erases that which will not draw him forward. He consumes memory like pigment. He is not God. He is not demon. He is frame. Entry XX, the doctrine of the sketch god. June 14, 1589. I have come to a blasphemous conclusion. The entity known in my visions as Silas is not a being in the traditional sense. He is a concept given draft, an incomplete God. He cannot act, move, or affect reality unless someone draws him. His worship is not prayer, but rendering. His sacraments are not relics, but chalk outlines. He is fed through unfinished intentions, through symbols, through repetition. The more people attempt to forget him, the more chalk lines appear. He is the patron saint of erased thoughts, the god of things half imagined. And when he is complete, we are not. Entry XXII, the ceiling. July 2nd, 1589. The others discovered my paintings. They screamed. One brother clawed out his eyes. Another spoke Silas's name and dissolved into ash. The abbot had me confined. Tomorrow I am to be burned as a heretic. I have one hope, that my manuscript is smuggled out, that some unfinished reader will take up the line and finish him again, or erase him properly. Postscript by Dr. Emmeline Brooke, 2022. I discovered the Vexley manuscripts while cataloging St. Rilian's ruins in the aftermath of the arson. The paintings described were never found, but in a sealed reliquary behind a false wall, I found a single stick of chalk, still intact, unnaturally silver, smooth as water-worn bone, and a mirror, one that reflects me with a second delay. I've since resigned my post, but I cannot stop drawing. I don't know why. I just know it's not finished. Part 8, Final Strokes. When the drawings began appearing in the sky, we knew it was too late. No longer confined to walls, mirrors, or files, the lines were crossing into reality. Chalk outlines etched across the clouds, spirals rippling through sunlight, shadows forming glyphs on asphalt, despite no visible objects above. People didn't scream. They forgot how. By then, most of the world had lost names, memories, faces. We were no longer individuals. We were drafts. Lauren's voice was the first I recognized. Through a broken car radio in an abandoned school parking lot, her transmission played like an echo from some buried frequency. If you can hear this, you're not done yet. You're still being drawn. Don't sign your name. Don't complete anything. We finish him when we finish ourselves. I found Ethan Marsh in an old motel along I-79. He looked like a man halfway erased, skin pale with graphite patterns, one eye missing, voice barely more than breath. But he remembered Rosalind. She told me he feeds on memory, he whispered. So I stopped remembering. I tore up every picture, every journal, even burned the stories I wrote. What did it change? I asked. He smiled, soft and broken. Now I don't know who he's drawing anymore. Rosalind Gale had taken refuge beneath a defunct television station in Ohio. There, behind sealed doors and blackout curtains, she covered every surface with unfinished art, lines with no end, spirals with no center. It's the only thing that confuses him, she explained. He's not a god. He's a system. He needs closure. If we deny him the final line, he stutters. She was painting her own body with chalk dust, arms, chest, face, never symmetrical, never clean. She wouldn't let herself be finished. By the time we reached the museum, Dorian's domain, it was gone. Or rather, it had become a single sketch. A structure no longer made of stone, but of dust and outline, floating above the city in perfect geometric silence. We entered anyway. Inside, the hallways no longer made spatial sense. Rooms folded back into themselves. Some walls screamed when touched. Others sobbed softly. And there, at the center, he waited. Silas. Not a man. Not a god. A sketch that survived its artist. He hovered like a statue uncarved, his features flickering between 1,000 unchosen identities. His coat stretched into the floor, his face a haze of chalk smears. Around him, the gallery of the forgotten. We saw our own lives drawn on the walls, half remembered. Lauren's sister, Ethan's first article, Rosalind's last prayer, Dorian's father's smile, each fading, each redrawn differently than we remembered. He reached toward us, not with hands but with line work, tentative strokes in the air, trying to complete what was unfinished. And we understood. He's not erasing us. He's trying to fix us, to render us correctly, without pain, without chaos, without flaw, to sketch the ideal version of each of us. But what's ideal in a mind that only knows outlines? What does a creature made of dust think perfection looks like? We refused. We picked up chalk, together, not to finish ourselves, but to draw chaos, shapes that spiraled into themselves, figures with 10 eyes and no faces, patterns that looped without end. Each of us drew something that made no sense, no symmetry, no meaning, just pure human defiance. And the gallery began to shake. Silas convulsed. His outline flickered. His glow stuttered, because we weren't giving him a form. We weren't agreeing to be finished. And in that space between intent and completion, he collapsed, not in a scream, but in silence, like chalk snapping under too much pressure. The museum crumbled into light, not fire, not rubble, just white, like paper erased clean. When I woke up, the world had returned. Mostly. The chalk was gone, so were the drawings. People remembered names again. The clouds no longer whispered, but there's something missing, something vague, like a word I once knew right on the tip of my tongue. And sometimes when I stare too long at the sidewalk, I see a line, one I don't remember drawing. A child passed me yesterday, humming softly, dragging chalk across the curb. He smiled. I think it's almost done, he whispered. I didn't ask what he meant, because deep down I already knew. We are never truly erased, only redrawn.
And that was tonight's tale from the Shadowed Tales archive. If it left a mark on your mind, if the silence feels heavier now, then the story did what it was meant to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the darkness. new stories are always on their way. Until then, keep the lights low and the doors locked.